I still remember the knot in my stomach the day my mother-in-law, Ruth, and father-in-law, George, first dropped by unannounced. I just set down a tray of coffee for my husband Daniel and me in our cozy two-bedroom apartment, the one we'd scraped every last penny to buy. I was dusting a shelf when the door swung open. There they were, Ruth with her perfectly coiffed hair, leopard print scarf, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. George lumbering behind her, his belt jutting out over a rumpled suit. "Surprise!" Ruth chirped, stepping inside like she owned the place. She set her designer handbag on the sofa and patted it for emphasis. "We thought we'd drop in for a visit." I froze. "We weren't expecting you," I managed, plastering on a smile as George's shoes scuffed the pristine wood floor. "Oh, it's no trouble at all," she said. "Actually, Daniel mentioned you two might be thinking about some renovations. We'd love to help you out with the costs." My heart sank. Help? Help how? My mind raced. We barely had enough left in savings to replace the cracked bathroom tile, let alone bankroll a remodel. But Ruth's eyes flicked to the sunlit living room, then to the hallway leading to my office, the room I'd turned into my small freelance studio. I swallowed. "We haven't made any decisions yet," I said. She smiled, silky as a snake. "We thought we'd simply take this off your hands. Sell the apartment to us. At a generous rate, of course. Our gift to you." "Sell?" my voice pitched. "You mean you want to buy our apartment?" Ruth leaned forward. "Yes. Think of it, you get a chunk of money now, no more mortgage payments. We'll give you fair market value, plus a little extra for your trouble." She plucked an envelope from her purse. "I have an offer letter here, ready for your signatures." I stared at that letter as though it were a venomous snake. "Generous rate?" "Ruth, George, that's not really what we had in mind." My gaze flicked to Daniel for help, but he looked mortified, lips pressed into a thin line. He cleared his throat. "Mom, Dad, I don't think." Ruth waved a manicured hand. "Nonsense. You two are so young, newlyweds. You need liquid cash, and we'd love this place for the kids' visits. After all, we came all the way from Boston." They lived 2 doors down, but I knew this was more than neighborly goodwill. A month earlier at Thanksgiving, Ruth had cornered me in the kitchen, clucking about our fancy apartment and how nice it'd be to have family under one roof. Daniel had laughed it off, but I'd felt the shift, a subtle reclamation. Now, here was the overture. "I'm sorry," I said, pulling the letter from her hand and handing it back. "But this apartment is ours. We've worked hard for it." My pulse pounded. "We're not selling." Her smile flickered but didn't die. "Well, we insist," she said, leaning on the sofa. "Here's the thing, if you don't consider our offer, we can't bank on you two for any other support." She let that hang in the air. Daniel's jaw clenched. They meant we wouldn't be included in the family trust, or their will, or whatever leverage they wielded. My breath caught with anger and hurt. These were the people who were supposed to welcome me, not threaten me. "Is that a threat?" Daniel asked, stepping forward. George snorted. "Life's not fair, son." My blood boiled. I gripped the coffee tray until my knuckles whitened. "This is our home," I said softly, "and we're not moving. Now, if you'll excuse us, we're busy." Ruth collected her handbag and rose. "Think about it," she said, voice sweet as arsenic. "We'll drop by again." They left, the door clicking shut like a judge's gavel. I slumped against the wall, coffee forgotten, heart hammering. Later that night, when Daniel and I sat on our couch in silence, I realized something had to change. We couldn't live under the threat of eviction by family. We needed a plan. The next morning, I did what any resourceful person would do. I went to our homeowner's insurance policy, our mortgage contract, and pulled every document in sight. Then I dug into public records for our building's title, our association bylaws, every clause that might protect us. By lunch, I had a binder stuffed with evidence that our apartment was secure, our rights unassailable. That afternoon, I invited Ruth and George over, on my terms. I set the coffee table with fresh cinnamon rolls and herbal tea, and I waited. They arrived sharp at 3, expecting another easy takeover. Ruth's smile perked when she saw the tray, but her eyebrows twitched when she noticed the binder on my coffee table. "More paperwork?" she asked, flitting a glance at its bulging spine. "I thought we should clear things up," I said, pouring tea into delicate cups. I tapped the binder. "You see, this place cost us every penny we had. When we signed the mortgage, we agreed to a rate that's below market because it's a 2-bedroom starter. We also have a clause in our buildings association rules that prohibits family buy-ups without board approval. Ruth blinked. Board approval. I flipped the binder open. Yes. And here's the approval resolution, copied from the minutes. It requires a unanimous vote of neighbors who happen to be very fond of us, to sell our home. I tipped my chin toward the window. At least 3 doors down were our friends, who'd signed proxy forms. Every member has signed. They want us here. Permanently. Her face paled. George's mouth dropped. I poured more tea, calm as a lawyer closing a case. And as for the trust, your names aren't on it. You chose not to contribute, so you don't get a say. That's standard practice. Ruth looked from the binder to me, eyes wide. You have all this. I shrugged. You offered to take the apartment, but you never asked if it was legal. She sank into the armchair, deflated. George crossed his arms but didn't speak. I sipped my tea. This is our home. We love it. We're not wealthy landholders. We're working people. We'll fix the bathroom tile ourselves, repaint the walls, keep the place warm for your visits. But we're not selling. Ruth's gaze fell to her tea. She lifted the cup with a trembling hand. Fine, she whispered. I suppose we'll figure something else out. I kept my expression gentle but firm. We'll always welcome you here, I said. But only if you respect our boundaries. They left without another word. The door clicked shut, and I exhaled, relief mingling with triumph. I looked at Daniel, who gave me a small, proud smile. We clinked our mugs together, quiet victory in our living room. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought of the twist I had in store, the surprise that would truly leave them speechless. It wasn't just the binder of legalese. It was something far more personal. We'd walked through a fire uninvited, and come out stronger. Our in-laws had tried to claim our home, but they'd underestimated us, and soon they'd learn that our apartment was just the beginning of what we'd built together. A partnership neither threats nor ultimatums could break. That afternoon, I should have been celebrating a small victory. My in-laws had finally slunk off, beaten for once at their own game. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table, drafting an email to the building's board of directors. I already had Ruth's offer letter tucked in my binder, next to the recorded minutes of the yes for herself, vote by every neighbor. The legal plumbing was airtight, but I wanted more than defense this time. I wanted to go on offense. By 6 o'clock, the building president, Mrs. Patel from 5B, had confirmed my request for an emergency meeting of the full cup board, and every shareholder in the lobby community. I hung the notice of special meeting on every lobby bulletin board, then brewed my strongest coffee and called in reinforcements. 3 of our closest friends from the pet owners committee, plus my brother who happened to be a real estate lawyer. By 7, the lobby thrummed with curious neighbors. Ruth and George arrived together, she in her leopard scarf, he trailing behind, suit more untucked than ever. Their jaws clenched as they saw pages of printouts taped under the glass behind the front desk, the new unit transfer policy. I'd penned and they'd immediately quashed upstairs. Now it was back, with signatures needed from every shareholder for passage. Shareholders who, thanks to our earlier outreach, were firmly in my camp. They paused under the fluorescent light as my brother Michael, strolling in with his briefcase, offered a polite half-smile. Evening, he said. Ruth's mouth opened, closed. George raised an eyebrow. By 7:30 the lobby was packed. The board president called the meeting to order. I stood beside her, heart pounding, as she read out the motion I'd submitted, to amend Article 5 of the CUP rules, unit sales and transfers between occupants and in-laws, up to second-degree relatives require approval by 3/4 of the watch group. Any proposal to purchase or lease a unit offered by a shareholder must include full disclosure of familial ties. Violations of these rules incur a penalty equal to 10% of the unit's assessed value, payable within 30 days. I watched my in-laws' faces lose color. Ruth glanced at George, then back at me. George's mouth twitched as he realized the implication. If they tried to repurpose our apartment for themselves, legally or by pressure, they'd be slapped with a penalty of over $30,000. The president called for a vote. By the time hands were counted, my husband's hand, 3 pet committee friends, 4 neighbors, and every board member, the amendment passed unanimously. Ruth's grip on her handbag slackened. George stiffened, but neither uttered a word. After the meeting, I approached them in the hallway. Ruth's voice trembled. This wasn't necessary. I stood tall. It was. You tried to strong-arm us out of our home. Now the rules protect us and the community. I placed the binder on a nearby bench. If you ever try again, you'll face that penalty. And every neighbor here will know why. George's throat worked, but he only grunted. Ruth's eyes shimmered with tears, pride, anger, something like shame. She clasped her purse so tight, I thought the clasp might break. I leaned in, voice gentle but firm. We welcome you here, always if you respect our home. She nodded once. We understand. Then they turned and walked away. Later, I sat on our couch with Daniel. He wrapped an arm around me. I knew you'd pull something like that. I exhaled, tension finally ebbing. It wasn't enough to say no. I had to build a wall. He kissed my temple. You did. And they'll never forget it. Days later, an email from Ruth arrived titled simply, "Thank you." Inside she wrote, "Patrick and Daniel, we apologize for our behavior. We now see how deeply you care for this home, not just as property, but as the center of your life. We pledge to respect your space, and we'd like to send you both out for a celebration on us. Dinner on Sunday, with love." Mom and Dad, I showed Daniel the note. He smiled, relief in his eyes. They came around. I nodded. They'll think twice next time. Then I added quietly, and I'll think twice next time too, about letting anyone push me off my ground. That Sunday, we arrived at a small bistro downtown. Ruth and George greeted us, faces warm, no suits, no ultimatums, just a mother and father seeking truce. Over risotto and red wine, they laughed at my brother's jokes and marveled at our apartment's quirks. At one point, Ruth reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you," she said. I blinked back tears. "Thanks, Mom." George raised his glass. To home wherever we choose to build it. We clinked glasses. And as the late afternoon light pooled around us, I realized something essential. Boundaries built carefully can become bridges. They had tried to take my apartment, my sanctuary, but I'd reclaimed it, not with anger, but with clear rules and community support. In the end, they'd learned respect, and we'd all learned that true family means honoring each other's homes, hearts, and hard, one piece.